Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the early slate and the night slate for Memorial Day. MLB does this every year where they have a ton of day games throughout the day. Looks like there are 12 games from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. They're a part of the DraftKings early slate. Then there are 4 games from 7 to 10, or from 7 to 8 that are on the night slate. We're going to cover both, talk about some plays I like from both slates, talk about stacks from both slates, BVP plays from both slates as well. But before we do get started, looking at these slates, make sure you guys drop a like on the video. I always appreciate it. And if you are new to the channel and you have not clicked that subscribe button yet, make sure you do subscribe down below so that way you won't miss out on any of my new videos. But yeah, we're going to start off at pitcher on the early slate. We have 4 options on the slate that are over 10K. Starting from the top, you got Justin Verlander, who I really like. As you can see, got him in my 5 plays here. Jacob deGrom, David Price, and Gio Gonzalez. We'll just go ahead and start off with Verlander. I like this spot for him versus the Yankees. Verlander had a ton of success all year this year in this matchup. Pitched 8 innings, only allowed 3 hits, got 14 strikeouts, finished with 43 DraftKings points when he faced the Yankees earlier this year. It's a dangerous matchup, but it is definitely a matchup where Verlander can rack up strikeouts. There's a ton of power in this Yankees lineup, but still a lot of guys that strike out. Judge, Stanton, Sanchez, Andujar, Torres towards the bottom of that lineup, guys that will strike out. I just really like Verlander here. I think he has a lot of upside. Might be somewhat risky, but I still think he's in play. Even though this might be a dangerous matchup, Verlander's been one of the safest options all year. One of the just most consistent pitchers. Hasn't scored less than 20 DraftKings points all year. We just go through the game log: 20, 34, 36, 24, 31, 43, 23, 22, 39, 31. Verlander's just so consistent. He's gotten strikeouts pretty much every game. He's going to pitch deep into games. He's going to throw at least 90 to 100 pitches. At least going to get you 5, 6, 7 innings. Love Verlander here. Just think he has a ton of upside. Definitely my favorite pitcher on the early slate. DeGrom, don't think I'm very interested in on the road in Atlanta. Just a tough matchup there. David Price and Gio Gonzalez, just 2 guys I don't feel like I have to pay over 10K for on the slate when I can get Verlander, who I feel like is by far the top option. If I were to go a little bit cheaper, I do like Chris Archer as an SP1 today. If you wanted to roll with him and you don't want to pay for Verlander, you could look to Chris Archer here at 9,500 versus the Athletics. I like that matchup, like that pitcher's park. I think there are strikeouts in that matchup where Archer can have success. He could definitely be an SP1 or SP2 play, just depending on how you work your pitchers. But the SP2 that I like is Caleb Smith here versus the Padres. This is a great matchup for Caleb Smith. Caleb Smith, I feel like, is a good pitcher. This guy's had some success this year. He's had a couple rough outings, but we saw the kind of upside and success this guy can have. Last start against the Mets, 6 2/3 innings, only allowed 3 hits, 1 run, got 8 strikeouts. Great matchup here versus a Padres team that we know strikes out a ton. We look at their projected lineup, their implied run total, only implied to score 3.7 runs. This lineup for the Padres is just not good. A ton of strikeouts in this lineup. Good pitcher's park as well. Some decent pitching weather, only 68 degrees, going to be pretty cool. Just think a lot of things are working for Caleb Smith here to where you can go to him as an SP2. If you want to go Verlander, Archer, if you can find the value at bats, I do like that. Archer, I think, has a lot of upside here, but Caleb Smith, you get some savings if you go down to him, and I think he's definitely in play at 8,100. And then just quickly looking at other SP2s that we could consider on the slate, there really isn't a lot I love but at SP2 besides Archer and Caleb Smith. Maybe Trevor Cahill at home versus the Rays. You could go to at 7,300, but Cahill's not a guy I'm really fired up about. Same with Eric Lauer at 6,200. I don't think Lauer's a very good pitcher, but this is a matchup at home versus the Marlins, and he's really cheap at 6,200. But that's kind of it for me at SP2 today. I'm mainly focusing on Archer, Caleb Smith, sort of getting some Cahill in there, and then SP1, I really just want to pay up for Verlander. I'm not very interested in deGrom, Price, or Gio. So moving on to bats, we're definitely going to need value going with Caleb Smith and Verlander as our 2 pitchers. So the first bat I like for a value play is Yonder Alonso. Great matchup here versus Dylan Covey. Alonso's dirt cheap at 3,800. This is a great spot for the Indians versus Covey, a pitcher I don't think is very good, a pitcher I definitely want to stack up against. The Indians are obviously a great stack here. They hit the ball well at home. They're going to be at home today. They have a 5.3 implied run total. This is just a great lineup to stack. Just guys that have power, guys that have speed. With Lindor, Ramirez, guys with speed. You got power with Lindor and Ramirez. Brantley's got power. Encarnacion, Alonso. Just think this is a good lineup top to bottom, a lineup you can stack up. And some value in this lineup as well with Edwin, Alonso, even Melky Cabrera you could go to, 3,500. Really like the Indians here. Really like Yonder Alonso as a value play at first base if you're looking to go cheap there. Next value play I like is Zach Cozart, 3,200. Can play him at second base or third base. Like this matchup for him versus Matt Boyd. I think this is a good spot for the Angels. I do like the Angels here. Another team you can look to stack up. They've got some value in their lineup as well, so you can fit them in with some of the expensive pitching options. We look at their lineup besides Trout. A lot of value here with Cozart, Upton, even Pujols, Simmons, 3,700. A lot of these righties are dirt cheap. Matt Boyd, a guy that has struggled versus righties, a pitcher I just don't feel like is very good in general. So I like Zach Cozart, 3,200. Great value. Projected bat leadoff. You're looking for a cheap second base or third base play. I think he makes a lot of sense. Then my final play in the outfield, David Peralta. I like the Diamondbacks here versus Homer Bailey, so I think David Peralta as a value play is a guy that you can look to if you're looking for a cheap outfielder. Although they added the Humidor into Chase Field, I still think this is somewhat of a hitter's park. I like targeting these Diamondbacks hitters versus Bailey, especially the lefties like Peralta, Lamb, Descalso, even Ketel Marte. You're looking for a cheap option at second base, shortstop, only 2,800. Great value from the Diamondbacks. You got guys with power in this lineup. You got guys that have speed as well. Mainly focused on the top of this lineup with Peralta, Lamb, Descalso. But if you want to go really cheap at some other positions like catcher or even like to the outfield with Brito, Alex Avila, you could go there. Homer Bailey is a pitcher I just want to pick on whenever he's on the mound. And I love the Diamondbacks here, especially with some of their price tags. But these are my 5 plays for today, guys, for the early slate at least. Verlander, Smith, Yonder Alonso, Zach Cozart, and David Peralta. Now just quickly going over stacks on the early slate. The teams I'm really loading up on are the Indians and the Diamondbacks by far. 2 teams I'm kind of going full stacks with. Then I like some righties from the Angels if you want to go to them, especially with their price tags. With guys like Cozart and Upton, Pujols. Some good value there if you're looking for cheap plays at those positions. But yeah, let's go ahead and look at BVP plays quickly on the early slate. Go over some. Just looking at early slate plays, Jackie Bradley 4 for 13 with the home run versus Aaron Sanchez. Curtis Granderson 10 for 51 versus David Price. That's only a 196 average, but he does have 4 home runs in those 51 at bats, or of those 10 hits, 4 of them were home runs. Devon Travis 5 for 12 with the home run versus David Price. Chris Bryant 5 for 14 versus Chad Kuhl. Jason Hayward 6 for 13 versus Chad Kuhl with the home run. Rizzo 6 for 15 with the home run versus Kuhl. And then a couple of these Seattle bats have hit. Doug Fister well. Gordon Beckham 6 for 20 with the home run. Kyle Seager 8 for 22 with the home run. And Denard Span, newly acquired Mariner, 8 for 22 versus Doug Fister. But yeah, that's it for BVP plays on the early slate. Now looking at the pitchers, David Price, he's done well against the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays have only hit him for a 212 average. Gio's done well against the Orioles. The Orioles are only hitting him for a 220 average to 123 at-bats. Aaron Sanchez done well against the Red Sox. Red Sox have only hit Sanchez for a 211 average through 147 at-bats. And then Verlander, he's had some success in this matchup. In the past, the Yankees are only hitting Verlander for a 182 average, and they have 33 strikeouts through 88 at-bats, so a lot of strikeouts. Verlander's been able to get a ton of Ks versus this team, which is something we like to see. But yeah, that's it for pitchers that have done well. Pitchers that have done poorly, 2 pitchers on the early slate have done poorly in their matchups. Chad Kuhl has struggled against the Cubs in the past. The Cubs have hit him well, 372 average, 5 home runs through 86 at-bats. And then Doug Fister done poorly against the Mariners. Mariners hit him for a 319 average with 3 home runs through 119 at-bats. But yeah, now let's go ahead and move on to this 4-game night slate. Not a lot at pitcher to really talk about, not a lot of options. Really, our most expensive pitcher on this main slate is Vince Velasquez, who is 9,900 versus the Dodgers. Then you got Jacob Junis at 9,700. Then it drops down to Bettis in Coors at 7,300. So we've got ways we can go. We're not going to have to really pay up much at pitcher, so we can spend up for bats on this slate. There is a Coors Field game on the night slate. It's definitely going to be highly owned because with there being no pitchers to pay up for, with there being a lot of bats to pay up for, these bats are going to be expensive. But you do want some exposure to Coors here. Obviously, I got a lot of exposure with pretty much a full stack with Desmond, Arenado, and Story in my 5 plays versus Suarez, the lefty. It's just so easy to fit them in. Might as well play them, especially with that run total in Coors. Looks like the Rockies have a 6 implied run total. Giants just right behind them with 5.6 run total, or at least implied run total. I think this night slate's pretty simple. I think you kind of pick the pitchers you want to play, then you just load up on Coors bats. And that's kind of what I did. Obviously, I like Velasquez and Stewart as my two pitchers on the slate. Played two pitchers from the same game. I think that's definitely something you can do since it's just a 4-game slate. I like Brock Stewart here as an SP2, and I like Velasquez as my pitcher to pay up for. I think this is a good matchup for Vince Velasquez. This is a guy that's really good versus right-handed hitters. We look at the Dodgers' projected lineup. They only have 3 lefties in that lineup, so there's going to be 6 righties. I don't know if you really include Brock Stewart as a lefty because it's the pitcher. Pitchers can't really hit. So I would say there's going to be 6 righties in here. Great matchup for Vince Velasquez, a guy that can get a lot of strikeouts versus righties. Does struggle versus lefties, but like I said, only 3 lefties in this projected lineup. Velasquez, I feel like, has the most upside out of any pitcher going on this slate. So I'm definitely wanting to pay up for him in 9,900. I'd rather have him over Jacob Junis, just to be honest. I would say it's likely that Velasquez outscores Junis. So I like Velasquez as my SP1. And then SP2, I really like Brock Stewart here. He's dirt cheap, 6,200 with the matchup at home versus the Phillies. I'm really not trying to play pitchers in cores. I kind of want to go away from them. Brandon McCarthy is a guy I'm not very interested in. We don't know who's going to pitch for the Mets. Maybe if the Mets release their pitcher for the night slate later on in the day, we can maybe consider him or whoever's going to pitch for the Mets. But right now, I think Stewart is a good, cheap SP2 here versus a Phillies team that does have some strikeouts in their lineup. Not a ton, but this is definitely a matchup where I feel like Stewart can put up enough fantasy points to return value on this price. At 6,200, you get 15, 20 fantasy points from him. That's definitely getting the job done. I think Stewart can get that amount. One thing to note, he did start, I believe, his last game, and it looks like he was only limited to 63 pitches. Now, I haven't heard anything about a limit here, but if Brock Stewart's going to be limited to like 70 pitches, we might want to get off of him. But right now, without hearing a limit, I think Stewart is an SP2 play that you can go to. Like I said, Bettis and Suarez are kind of off the table for me. I just don't play pitchers in cores. Brandon McCarthy, I don't know if I really want to go to versus the Mets. I don't feel like McCarthy's a very good pitcher. Lance Lynn, that matchup against the Royals scares me. The Royals, just not a team that strikes out a ton. Then Junis, I don't really want to pay 9,700 for him. I'd rather go down to Stewart, get the extra salary, and pay it for bats because we want some exposure to that Coors Field game, kind of on both sides. So Velasquez and Stewart is my 2 pitchers on the main slate. And then looking at my 3 bats, got all Rockies here, all their righties. Ian Desmond being the first guy I like versus Andrew Suarez, a pitcher that I played some this year, especially when he's had the right matchups, but this is definitely not the right matchup. In Coors Field, the Rockies are going to put up some runs here. You want exposure to the Rockies, especially the righties. So many righties in this lineup have power. Desmond, Arenado, Story, even Iannetta, even Noel Cuevas at 3,500 if you're looking for cheap value in the outfield. Love the Rockies here. I think they're in play. Their lineup's in play top to bottom. So I just kind of went with the full righty stack with Desmond, Arenado, and Story. Really don't need to explain why I played these guys. These guys are just so good versus lefties, especially in cores. Arenado's crushed lefties in cores this year. Story's been great at home, especially versus lefties as well. I think this is a great stack that you can go to. You can also look to the Giants side, though, as well if you want to go to them. They really didn't get a ton of price increases. Besides Brandon Belt, you got some good value from the Giants. You could definitely load up on them on this slate and still fit in some of the expensive pitching options, still fit in some Rockies as well. Do look to the Giants. I like both sides of this game. I think both sides are in play. But yeah, guys, I think that's it for the 4-game night slate. We'll quickly talk about stacks. Really stacks for me on the night slate. It's Coors Field. I'm not going to the Dodgers, obviously not playing Phillies, bats. And then the Royals Twins, I don't really want to go to that game for bats. I'll pick a couple one-offs, maybe like Moustakas versus Lynn, maybe like Kepler versus Junis, but I'm really just kind of playing all the hitters from this Coors Field game. If we get a pitcher for the Mets, and once we get the pitcher for the Mets, whoever's going to pitch, if it's a bad pitcher, we could definitely consider for some of these Braves bats. But we are obviously going to have to wait for that news. Don't have that news, or don't have that information right now as I'm recording this video at 11 o'clock Sunday night. But yeah, I think that's it for stacks. Quickly looking at BVP plays on the main slate. Just 2 of them. Alex Gordon, 7 for 12 versus Lance Lynn, and Mike Moustakas, 3 for 10 versus Lynn, but does have 2 home runs. Do like Moustakas at third base if you're not playing Arenado. And looking at pitchers, only pitcher that has done well in their matchup is Chad Bettis versus the Giants. The Giants have hit him for a 220 average. Kind of struggled, only got 22 hits through 100 at-bats, 3 home runs. And that's really it for pitchers that have done well. No pitchers, have, at least with a 60 at-bat sample, have done poorly in their matchup on the main slate. So I think that's it for this video. hopefully you guys did enjoy the video. Hopefully it helped you. Hopefully it was pretty informative covering both slates. If you have any questions, you can always hit me up on Twitter about either slate. Always active on Twitter. Make sure you drop a like on the video before you get out of here. Make sure you subscribe. Hit me up if you have any questions. And I think that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck tonight on both slates. Peace.